First, welcome to the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies. This will be a first in a series of kind of neighborhood and public lectures we offer at the facility. We are a nonprofit educational institute, though all of us have a devotional background associated with the Krishna Society. The organization itself is not religious. Where research, our two areas that we work on are consciousness studies, is a main area, and we're designing the largest science museum in India, comparing ancient wisdom and modern science. We have one of our scientists here. Doug is our academic director and an astrophysicist. We have astronomers, biologists, all kinds, all over the world working. Obviously, a lot of it's by Zoom, and then we have regular seminars here. Anybody would like a tour of the house, know the history, I'm the director. My cards are up front. Just reach out to me, and I'll gladly give you a tour and tell you more. We have an extensive library here. Half of it was donated by two wonderful professors from the University of Florida. When they were retiring, they said, you guys could use the books well. So we built all the bookshelves while we were in a 4-year remodel of this house. I do want to say the library is not a lending library, but for a university community and the Duck Pond neighborhood, you're welcome by appointment to come and read the books. If tonight you happen to pull any book from a shelf, don't reshelve it, as they say at the public library. Stick it back into the book cart, and our librarians do that. If you have any questions about the library, Shamla, raise your hand. She's our co-librarian. She can tell you anything about that. In the back, there's a bathroom through the back archway. There's also drinks on the table, and then through the next room, you walk into the breakfast nook. There are wonderful snacks cooked by our world-class cook. She's she's actually not a cook, she's a chef, and she's Deepak Chopra's favorite chef for his programs. And so I welcome you to the Institute. Any questions? Again, I'm the director, and we have Monica there is the associate director, and we have other staff who are wearing this. Come see us, ask any questions you have during snack time. Now I have the pleasure of the very brief introduction to my dear friend Vasudha Narayanan, who we've known for 35, 40 years, long time.
We met when we were 2 years old.
Yes, we did. Professor Narayanan and I have been talking about organizing this program for longer than I want to say. She is the highest ranking professor at the University of Florida, which is distinguished professor, former president of the Academy of Religions. Her specialty has been the Hindu traditions around the world, especially the diaspora. She's the author of 9 books, numerous articles, chapters and books, and is invited to speak all over the world. One of her earlier books, The Way and the Goal, from 1987, is being re-released by our associates, by our institute in January. And we're going to announce that and make a big deal of it, I hope. It's one of my favorite books. Because it really inspired me, The Way and the Goal. So I could go on talking about Vasu, but then she'll get mad at me because she has to give her talk. But it's a real privilege to have Vasudha here, and again, afterwards, stay around. We'll have some snacks. If somebody needs a drink, it's over there. And welcome to the Institute. I turn it over to you, Liz.
Thank you all for coming today, and thank you for that very long and wonderful introduction. I said long because I specifically asked him to keep it short because my talk is long and I didn't want to take away from my time. But thank you for the wonderful introduction. It's a pleasure to see all of you here. and some good friends here also. I've been working on Cambodia for only 24 years now, no big deal. And I used to go very regularly until COVID hit. And so it's only now that I'm going to start going back. And most of my work has been in Cambodia, going around places before, actually some of it before it was demined in the early days. And there were like 4 or 5 hotels in Siem Reap. And now there are a zillion ones up there. So I also wanted to thank Monica for the very nice title. I really like it and I'd like to steal it for my next talk. This one I had planned with more prosaic title. It's simply to do with the god Vishnu and the Vishnu temples in the Angkor area. Not just Angkor Wat, the temple, but the larger area itself. I do want to say that there's a lot of stuff that I don't know, and I wish I did. But in the words of Avayar, 2nd century or 1st century CE, the galaxies out there, and all that I know is maybe less than a fistful of sand. This is a story from Indian text. Anyone knows what this is? Yeah, it's called The Churning of the Ocean of Milk. And it's a replica of one of the largest bas-reliefs in the world, which is 49 meters wide. And where can you find it? In Washington, D.C., right outside the Royal Embassy. So this Hindu story is right outside the embassy, and to put it in context, the embassies put someone or some story out in front, which is somehow emblematic of their whole culture. So, not so much today, but at one point, I guess, Gandhi was the best known person from India. So Gandhi was outside, is outside the Indian embassy. And some of you may kind of wonder about this, but outside Britain is Churchill. And outside Indonesia, strangely, is the Hindu goddess Saraswati, even though it's a Muslim nation. This is Angkor Wat, and the colors are real, not touched or anything. It's during monsoon time. Angkor Wat is near Siem Reap, Cambodia. That's the city. Angkor, and we don't know what the temple was called originally. Angkor is their pronunciation of the word Nagara from Sanskrit, which means city. Wat from Vatika, which is courtyard or garden. So it simply means like the city garden or something like that. And that's how it's been referred to for a while. It was consecrated in 1135, and it was built by a king called Surya Varman. Surya means sun, and I'll come to that a little later today. And in that is the largest bas-relief in the world, and I'll keep coming back to this. This is the story that you saw first, the churning of the ocean of milk. Except this is one small part because my camera can't do justice. It's 49 meters. So it's like more than 160 feet. And it's the largest bas-relief in the world. So evidently it meant something for them to pour all those physical, monetary, and other resources in carving this. And there are multiple meanings into, and I can't go into all of them, but briefly talk about a couple today. But tune into the silver screen. I'm writing a book on that. So this is on the eastern side of Angkor Wat. And Angkor Wat, when it was built, was a temple to Vishnu, the Hindu god. Today it's a Buddhist temple. It's the only Hindu temple on any national flag. This is the Cambodian flag. So it's only Hindu temple to grace a flag. On a different note, it's also on beer, police, lapels, tour guides, boarding passes, arrival cards, and so on. And the biggest story in that, as I told you, is the churning of the ocean of milk. And I'll tell you the story briefly in a few minutes. In 2003, when they built a memorial for all those who were killed in the killing mines in Vietnam War, the Khmer Rouge, they circled the memorial park. Out of the thousands of stories, Hindu and Buddhist, that they had access to, they chose this story. And this shows a row of devas, or the celestial beings, the good guys, and holding a rope in the hand. The rope is a serpent. And on the other side are the evil guys, the asuras or the demons. And we all know a few, one or two, okay, a whole lot. And they're all playing, it's almost like tug of war with good and evil. You'll find this story illustrated outside hotels, and you find it in the lintels and in artwork around all over Cambodia. This is a 13th century, 11th century depiction, though I think it's a little earlier. Let me take a minute to tell you a story about this. It is said that the demons had gotten control over the whole universe. Nothing different from what's going on that you see off and on in the world. And you have the good guys who went to the god Vishnu and asked for help. Long story short, he says, you have to cooperate with the bad guys and churn the ocean of milk. Some people identify it with the Milky Way. And when you churn it, you'll get the nectar of immortality, or amrita. Amrita. Amrita is a Sanskrit word meaning death, cognate with mortality. It's an Indo-European word. Amrita is like saying immortal. And you'll get that nectar of immortality. And the devas, the good guys, are not happy about it. They say, but if the bad guys help us, what if they want a portion of it? Then we'll always be under their control. And Vishnu says, I'll take care of it, don't worry. So this is a cosmic enterprise. They take a huge mountain called Mandara and a big snake. By the way, the snakes in a lot of these stories are good guys. So get that out there. And they use it as a rope, but the whole enterprise begins to sink. So Vishnu comes in the shape of a turtle to anchor it. And later on here, also to hold steady the enterprise. And eventually, a lot of goodies come out. They all split it. And when the Amrita comes, Vishnu makes sure only the good guys get it. So that's the story, but it's become like although it's well known in Cambodia, it's a relatively small story in India. When you compare it to the stories of the gods Rama, Krishna, and others, it's a churning of the what? And most people don't know the story. And yet, when you go to Cambodia, this is all you see. This is just a few of the multiple lintels that you see, and I've hunted them down in situ and in museums. And you find them in all kinds of places. You find them on bridges, in the round, in popular art that you sell on the street, even on the election symbol.
Wow.
Yep, the election logo it's a national emblem. You find the story. And this is it in Angkor Wat. You also find some of the longest inscriptions in Sanskrit in Cambodia. This is one of the longest ones. It's right now in Thailand. The longest one in the world, actually, is longer than the one in India, in Rajasthan. It's 298 verses. The one in Rajasthan is 109. So you find it here, and it's 10th century. How did this happen? How did this huge monument, one of the largest temples ever built, until recently, that was the largest temple, Hindu temple in the world. How did that temple built for Vishnu? How did all these kings who bore Hindu names but were very Cambodian? How did all these stories and the protocol about building temples as dictated in the Hindu texts come here? Where did it begin? And yet, of course, when you look at it, you'll know that there are a lot of differences, a lot of differences. And as I told you about the story of the churning of the ocean of milk, the Khmer people use their own, absolutely their own agency in picking and choosing what they want. So I don't want you to think of this as any kind of colonization, or that the Khmer people were passive recipients of a culture that came from India. They portray maps that way, and they look to India for the source, particularly of the Buddhist culture. But that's not the case. It was a global marketplace. They picked and chose what they wanted. Angkor was one of the largest metropolises in the world at that time. And they picked and chose what they want from there. Roman coins have been found from the 3rd century BCE in Alkeo. So, I mean, we think globalization happened yesterday. So, map for today, GPS, Waze. Tell you there is a method in my madness and in the way I arranged this lecture and got it out from here. First, quickly, origin legends. How did it come to be? Second, I'm focusing this on deities, the biggest ones some of us think, is Vishnu. There's another god called Shiva, and has a huge number of temples addressed to him. But the temples in Cambodia were quite often, including the Buddhist ones, were very ecumenical. They kind of like went out, and in the Vaishnava temples, there were Shiva things going on, and Buddhist temples, they had a lot of Hindu stuff going on, and so on. And then I'll focus on the iconography of one Hindu god, Vishnu, in different forms, 8 arms, reclining on the serpent, called infinity. And the word Vishnu means all-pervasive, immanent. He who is immanent in every atom of the universe. So, master of space. And he reclines on the serpent of time, the serpent called Ananta, infinity. And then focus on 2 of the many incarnations that the Cambodians believe happened, Rama and Krishna. And then I'll move to the Angkor area. And A3A is a story which is not known in any of the Sanskrit texts, but only in South Indian Tamil texts and an oral tradition. I'll show one for an example. And I'll keep coming back to the churning of the ocean of milk. That's why I kind of put it out there. One of the meanings is calendar function. I'll show its connection with a text called the Bhagavata Purana. And finally, why it's so important in royal coronation, including like 20 years ago. So these are not traditions that were out there, they keep coming back. So the legendary contexts, very briefly. The earliest historical information on Cambodia actually comes from Chinese texts. Not in India, not in Cambodia, but China. There are also many legends and stories told about this in Vietnam and in southern Cambodia. And there are about 3 or 4, actually 4 versions of this legend. And in all of them, the woman, the ancestor, the woman, is actually from the local area. These legends are kept in inscription form in this temple, the Bakse Champrong, which is right across. It's a little temple easily missed, but right across from Angkor Wat, about a block away. And in these legends, the father is usually a king or a holy sage. A king from the solar dynasty, Surya Vamsha, like the King Rama was. And so he's always the male coming from India. In some, it's a holy man, Kamdinya he's called. And, or some people call this holy man Kambu. And the woman is a Naga princess. Naga has 2 meanings in Sanskrit. Serpent, and you see serpents everywhere in Cambodia. Beautiful sculpture. When they start putting it in initially, it's a very thick neck. Notice this. But as we go on, 3 centuries later, into the 11th, 12th century, you find a very elegant neck for the Nagas. And the princess is a Naga princess. The second meaning is, could be, and this is the way it's used in Buddhist text, a foreigner. But the local people always interpret the word Naga as the serpent princess. So the coming together of the male from India and the female from Cambodia gives rise, in their minds, to Cambodia. I told you that the holy man is sometimes called Kambu. And in these, it's not a Naga princess. In that story, he marries an Apsara, a divine dancing girl, called Mera. And that's how, with K from Kambu and Mera, Khmer, Khmer, is supposed to be. And some people think it's a folk etymology. Some people think, nah, it's there. But born of the sage Kambu. The Sanskrit word for born is being born is Aja. Kambuja. Kambuja, which gives us the name Cambodia today. And this serpent is seen in tourist logos and so on. Done with that part, moving on to the second. And when I talk about the Cambodian Empire or the Khmer Empire, I'm not talking about Cambodia, which is this little thing in today's map, but rather the larger Khmer Empire, the one in the dark pink, which includes part of Laos, part of Vietnam, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Thailand. It was a huge empire. And it's worth knowing what is going on in India at the same time. These were the major empires. So we study all this in a historical context. And of the many, many kingdoms here, the ones that had a lot of connection, we know, with Cambodia, and we know this through material evidence, would be through the Pallava. And so this is, and they had the headquarters in a place called Kanchipuram. And here, Kalinga, Orissa. I also feel this, the equivalent of the Silk Route from this part, Kashmir, because the stories of the Naga and the prince from India, those stories, and it involves drying up a huge tank, a lake, and so on. Very similar to the stories of Kashmir. By the way, For those of you who know the Indian epic Mahabharata, in some cases, the ancestor from India is Ashwatthama. So it's just one of those curious stories. Okay. The earliest kingdoms alluded to in the Chinese text are Funan and Jenla. And this area is where I begin with the first known Sanskrit inscription that we have in Cambodia that survived. It goes back to the 6th century CE. And by that time, remember, they've already had 1,000 years of trade with India and Rome and other places. So this is much later, 6th century CE. And this is the inscription. And it's an endowment by a queen called Kula Prabhavati, a very Sanskrit name, Indian name, Kula Prabhavati. And she identifies herself by that name and says, my husband was so and so on. And it turns out she was probably between 512, 515. Maybe true that her son later, who's a legitimate heir, was killed by his half-brother. And Kula Prabhavati was a follower of the god Vishnu. And I start with this by acknowledging the strength of this queen, the woman, knowing and looking at the audience of the many strong women friends I have out here, and particularly a shout out to one through whose compassion and generosity has made an impact on all of our community, Bhakti Cohen. One, a long-time friend with whom I've had many, many Krishna lunches, sitting in the right there in front of the library with Lynn Straka and her husband Blake. Lynn worked with the UF International Center for many, many years, and Blake with the library. The width and the breadth of their knowledge, the interest they had, I don't even know how we met, but we started to have these Krishna lunches regularly. So, given these many strong women I know out here and so many of you, I'm happy to begin with another strong woman, Kula Prabhavati. Her son, Gunavarman, oh, this is the inscription. Oh, I have to tell you a little bit about her inscription. She endows money to the god who reclines on the serpent bed in the Milky Ocean. That is Vishnu. So right away we know that by the 6th century, she cared enough to endow money to Vishnu. And her son, who was called Gunavarman, says that he is from the Kaundinya lineage and identifies himself as the Lord of the world. Well, too bad he got killed very fast. But apart from that, so I keep talking about Vishnu and so on. What were the religions in Cambodia then? The word Hindu did not exist, as you may. Much later word. So we have words like the follower of Buddha, and it referred to Theravada Buddhism. Sorry, Mahayana Buddhism, I apologize. Mahayana Buddhism, and there's Shaiva, follower of the god Shiva, and Vaishnava, follower of the god Vishnu. So it's generally threefold. So when kings or queens made their endowments, they made it to the Vaishnava, Shaiva, or Buddha, or all three. They kind of were very harmonious. So even in the Buddhist Mahayana centers, you find many Vaishnava stories being carved there. One of the earliest places where you find the Chen, and this is the Chenla Empire, is actually in Laos. So I position myself in a place called Ubon Ratchathani, and then you cross the Mekong, and then you go into Laos, and behind this mountain is a place called the Linga Parvata, the abode of Shiva. And it's supposed to be very similar to the god Shiva's mountain Kailasa. And out there is one of the early churning of the ocean of milk panels, which is why I went there in the first place. Near this place, they found an inscription, and the letters on it, the letter formation, the orthography is very much like Pallava style in India. And the king here, the local king, calls himself by particular names, Mahendra Varman and so on. And there was a king by that name exactly at that time in India. So we know there's a lot of communication going on. It's just that they didn't quite do everything that the Indians did. Like I said, they picked and chose what they wanted. So, and even the little placard here will tell you the inscription, and they'll tell you Pallava alphabet, meaning letters. It's Sanskrit language, and where they found it. So, in my talk, I'll be focusing on the pre-Angkorian period, all the way up to the Angkorian period, and I will stop by about the 12th century. So I showed you the geographic area where I'm focusing, and this is the time period in which I'm sure I'll be doing it. In 802, a king who called himself Jayavarman, the name Jayavarman is like Henry in England. Every other king was called Jayavarman. And Jayavarman VII in Cambodia, who lived in the 12th century, is even now sort of to be one of the biggest and most wisest of the Buddhist kings, Jayavarman VII. He established numerous hospitals and so on. The Jayavarman II, actually established the Kambuja. He called it the Kambuja Empire, born of Kambu, and he had 5 capital cities. If one is good, 5 is better. And one of them is called the Hariharalaya, the temple of Vishnu and Shiva. And there are 3 sites there, and this is one of them in ruins. And out there in front of the Shiva temple is a Nandi, or a bull, and Shiva with 2 consorts, Ganga, the river Ganges, which is normally iconographically he holds on his head, and Uma or Parvati on the other side. And this is the temple. Notice, even though this is a temple to Shiva, how different it is in architecture. It shares the vocabulary of Southeast Asia, more like Borobudur, than the Indian architecture. But it has 5 stages. Why? Because the number 5 was considered to be sacred to Shiva. And even the mantra for him, Om Namah Shivaya, has 5 syllables. So it's almost like Stations of the Cross, where you have like each level, and on each level you meditate. It's that kind of inner meaning. And this 5 levels was seen in other places too, including the temple in Bhakeng, which is on a mountain near Angkor Wat. Yashovarman I moved the capital to the Siem Reap area. And this temple called Bhakeng has again 5 layers, shaped like a pyramid. It's more like Chichen Itza or Borobudur than it is in India. It's built according to Indian architectural ways, that is, in the shape of a square, and so on. Even though they have acknowledged many deities, my focus, as I told you, is on Vishnu. One of the earliest deities found is Vishnu with 8 arms. And this is a big deal because he's not well known in north of India very much. But in the south, Vishnu with 8 arms is huge in the south of India. And I fell in love with him when I saw a picture of him. So I made a pilgrimage to see him in 2005, and he was undergoing a facelift here. You can see, yeah. But he's restored, he's there. And it's huge. And you can see the face and the features, just extraordinarily beautiful. The main deity in Angkor Wat is supposed to have been this eight-armed Vishnu, this very one, except the head's been locked off. It's a Buddha head, the hands have been locked off, its arms with Buddhist symbols. And it's entered popular imagination. In every roundabout, you find Vishnu with 8 arms. These are all like late 20th century. Oh, actually, early 21st, even I would say, yeah, early 21st. But the 20th century ones were all destroyed. So early 21st century. So anytime you go around these. So one of the early 8-armed Vishnus is in this set of temples called Prasad Kravan, built by nobility, not by a king, but by nobility. And in the middle spire is this Vishnu with 8 arms. And it's built in such a way that I could never, in all my trips there, ever get a good picture of it. So I owe the good pictures to the museum staff from the Musée Guimet in Paris. So they shared it with me. But notice, on top of this Vishnu's head, there's a crocodile. This crocodile. Not an alligator, a crocodile. See? And for years, I wondered what could it be. And the local people didn't know, others didn't know. But you found crocodiles in different places. And then I had this eureka moment when I remembered a Sanskrit text in a book called the Vishnu Purana. And this book, first part of the first millennium CE, has this paragraph where the crocodile is seen to be a constellation on top of Vishnu, on top of Hari, and Dhruva, the pole star, is on its tail. And in that particular paragraph, it says, Lord Hari takes the form of the Shishumara. Shishumara literally means child snatcher, a name for crocodile. The Gangetic ones used to steal kids. Dhruva, the pole star, and it speaks about it, the constellations follow the sun, and Narayana, that's Vishnu, the refuge of the world, who exists in the heaven, is Shishimara, the crocodile's foundation. And so it goes on to say that Hari or Vishnu is in heaven, and it's a constellation, and Dhruva is in the tail of the crocodile. And the word porpoise is from early 19th century translation. That's why this English is a little different. So the point I'm making and will be making is that you see stuff in carvings, in sculpture, and in Cambodia, which are taken from Hindu texts, but, and this is a huge but, not seen in any Indian temple. So here you have the Hindu text, and you think, oh, 2,000 years of temples in India, and every village has about 55,000. So surely it must be somewhere. Hello? No. But you find them in India. So this is one of them, and I'll point to 2 more as we go on. More Vishnu, this time the reclining Vishnu. I'm done with 8-armed Vishnus, plenty more to say, but reclining Vishnus. And this Vishnu reclines on the serpent called Ananta or infinity. And from his toes comes the river Ganges, Ganga. And this is the river, the Siem Reap River, 1 hour hike from Banteshre, which is 30 minutes from Angkor Wat. And you climb up the hill, and that's where you find this. And a whole set of these beautiful carvings. On the western side of Angkor Wat is this Barai. It's a huge human-made water reservoir. That one. And I sit on the right side of the plane when I go, so I take pictures. Date is not sure, probably 11th century. And in the middle, see this little speck? That's an island called Western Mabon. It's a human-made thing. And this is a NASA picture of the Western Barai. And this is also from a NASA picture showing the island West Mabon. If any of you are going to or planning to go to Minneapolis, I know that was right on top of your mind, right? But between now and mid-January, or even if you're not planning to, make a pilgrimage. The largest Vishnu from there, found in West Mabon, is now visiting Minneapolis. In 1936, a local farmer had a dream of a Buddha who came to him and told him, "I'm inside the great well there, get me out." And the story became well known. The French archaeologists got to it. And eventually came this large bronze bust of the reclining Vishnu, more than 15, 16 feet wide. But only this part, and he's bronze. There's no other bronze Vishnu this size anywhere in the world, only Angkor. Along with him, a number of fragments were found. These little fragments. And how do you put them together, right? Well, I saw him in 2005 in the National Museum in Phnom Penh. That's 20 years ago. Last year, the fragments, my friend sent it to me. He was responsible in getting all of the stuff together. He got it, and it was put together in Musée Guimet. And this is the Vishnu. This is the one. I visited him in May. And he has now come to Minneapolis. And so and last week I zoomed in a 1-hour talk on just him because that's the primary object of my research. And so this West Mabon, Vishnu is now at the Minneapolis Institute of Art. And next week, they'll be having some dances to go around what's called Ananta, infinite. And if the planes are still flying, I hope I'll be there to give a talk. It all depends on flight. Remember what I told you, Vishnu means immanent, pervasive. Ananta, without end. And so within that picture, that sculpture, you have this telegraphic idea of someone who's a master of space and time, or immanent on infinity. Very popular in India, but seen a lot in performing arts as well. And this Vishnu reclining is the source of creation because from his navel comes a lotus flower on which sits a creator god with a small g called Brahma, and he creates the world. But this Vishnu is also the place where in the Bhagavata Purana, Mother Earth, in the form of a cow and others go, asking for relief, and he incarnates himself as Krishna from there. And this is the place when reclining, at the end of this cycle of time, the entire universe is brought into him in dissolution. And there are huge passages about it in the Mahabharata saying when there's nothing but just ocean, everything is gone and everything is drawn into his ocean bed, into the snake, himself and the snake. Okay, done with eight-armed Vishnu, done with reclining Vishnu, and I am in awe of myself for having done Vishnu in 2 minutes, the reclining Vishnu, because that's been, I spent 20 years working on it. Many incarnations, we already spoke about one of them, the churning of the ocean of milk. And now, one of the main incarnations is Rama. Huge panel of the Ramayana war. As soon as you go to the Angkor Wat, turn left to go around, you see a war. And this is Rama on top of Hanuman with his bow and arrow. Many stories from the Ramayana in many places. This is the monkey Hanuman, the messenger of Rama, going to see Sita, Rama's wife, when she was kidnapped and held prisoner. And Sita's smart. She knows this could be fake news. So she is looking at Hanuman, not sure. And he shows her Rama's ring to prove that he is the right guy. There's a story in the Ramayana of sibling rivalry. Two monkeys, Vali and Sugriva, fighting each other. And Rama helps them and shoots down Vali. This story, which speaks about sibling rivalry, must have touched a chord with the royalty in Cambodia. The brothers were constantly killing each other. I mean, this is Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. You know, I mean, they were constantly, so they were really obsessed with this story. And so you find it in many places, the same story repeated over and over again. You find images of Balarama from 600 CE. I mean, that's way back. And now I want to show you a few stories from the life of Krishna in Cambodia. One of the very few ones I've seen is of baby Krishna in Cambodia. This is him crawling between the two trees. Right there. It's one of the very few. But the story that was really big for them in the early days, in the 6th and 7th century CE, so big that they built huge images of them, was Krishna lifting up the mountain Govardhana. For some reason, this was a really big thing. So I saw the one on the left. I took that picture in 2005. And the one that's all cleaned up, 2022, when he was visiting Cleveland. But this is not the only one. I mean, I'm talking larger than life. It's about the size up to the ceiling. This is not the only one. At the same time period, to have not one, but 3 different Krishnas holding up Mount Govardhana must have meant something. That's the same period of the huge Vishnu with 8 arms also. So this is the second one. And he has permanent residence. He's safe in Cleveland. And you may wonder what happened to this leg, right? They had a leg there. They had a piece. And later on, just a few years back, they realized it didn't quite fit. And so they checked out the one, his twin, so to speak, in Phnom Penh Museum. And that, like Cinderella, that leg fit directly on him. So Cleveland Museum returned that. But this Phnom Penh, I just love his face. Look at the beauty and the serenity of his face. Just amazing. So I then, to see both of them, and this was the Cambodian delegation visiting, we had a small symposium at the Cleveland Museum. To see the two, one from Cleveland and this one is from Phnom Penh. It was quite amazing. And the story of Krishna holding up Govardhana is huge in other parts of Cambodia. Also, you find that the one in the middle is from India. Stories from Krishna's life, and this is a sidebar. The stories, the panels I'm going to show you is from this temple called Bapun. And when it was being built, before it had come there, and it was just rising above the ground, the architect Pascal Royer allowed me to climb up the scaffolding, take the pictures. I was not too safe. But then when I'm in Cambodia, I'm reckless. This is how it looked then. The French had taken down the temple, and they have this particular method by which they number it and they put it all together for sturdy rebuilding. And after they took it down and they had the plans, they had sent part of the plans to Paris. Pol Pot came, Khmer Rouge, the plans were burnt, destroyed. And so when I started to visit in the early part of the 21st century, like 20, 50 years ago, this is what it looked like. A huge three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. And Pascal had been in charge, he passed away recently, in charge of putting it all together. So this picture is from either 2002 or 2003. No, it's taken from the top, somewhere around there. And every year it would go up a little bit whenever I went. Came up, and by 2015 it was almost done. 2014. In this temple, even though it's dedicated to Shiva, you have many, many panels of Shiva, of Krishna. So this is from the top, way up on top. And the panels in the reign of Aditya Varman II from Krishna. On the left, Vasudeva and Devaki mourning the loss of the children. And the person helping, giving the child to the god. Can you see it? Yeah. And here the god killing the baby. And Vasudeva and Devaki in mourning, right? But beautiful panels from then. And the story, Krishna dancing on Kalinga, Kaliyanardana. By the way, there are only very few panels of this scene, the story. I don't know the reason, but I think because the Khmer people they saw themselves as having descended from Naga princess, the snake, they don't like to see a snake being vanquished. That's just the feeling. I'm not sure. I made it up, but but you don't find this at all. And in the different temple, I'm just giving you a few representative ones, called Bante Shre, which was built by not just one priest called Yajna Varaha, but his sister Jahnavi also took part, and brother Vishnu Kumara took part in the building of this beautiful gem in pink sandstone. And there you have the story from the Mahabharata, the burning of the Khandava forest. Can you see the arrows here? Indra raining down rain. And I'm sorry, I wish I could tell you all the stories. And then Arjuna and Krishna out there trying to save Agni and the forest. This is a beautiful small temple. And out there, you also find Lakshmi. and Lakshmi with the two elephants anointing her to be the queen of the entire universe. I'll come back to this panel later on. The important panel, I'll come back to the story. Okay, the moment you're waiting for, 10 minutes more for Angkor. Welcome to Angkor. Beautiful at any time of the day. And the sunrise is just amazing. And over monsoon time, all these colors. I told you it means Nagara or city, dedicated to Vishnu. And he says, among the solar deities, among the Adityas, I'm Vishnu. And Aditya means solar deity, sun. And the name of the king who built this temple is called Surya Varman. Surya also means the sun. And if some of you know about archaeoastronomy, how the pyramids in Chichen Itza, also those in possibly in Egypt, were built according to the alignment of the stars and the planets and all the whole field called archaeoastronomy there. Angkor Wat is one of them. So this is a portrait of Surya Varman, probably after he died. This was installed on the southern side of Angkor Wat. And although Angkor is a Buddhist temple, Theravada, when it was built, it was dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu. Sure, I told you that. And I haven't changed my mind. So this is the god, Vishnu. And see at the central tower with 4 towers around it. It replicates in Hindu and Buddhist mythology Mount Meru with the 4 peaks around it. Or Buddhism too. And this pattern in temples is quite common in northern India. And you find it in, for instance, in Bhubaneswar in the Brahmeshwar temple. And many others in Rajasthan, Ocean as well. So they kind of picked and chose stuff when they went on a shopping spree. I like this pattern here, I like this wallpaper there, I'll take this, thank you. But the temple itself, Angkor Wat, faces west. And it has 3 floors. And somehow people thought, oh, it's facing west, it's a funerary monument. No, it's not. In my opinion, it's not. And I would argue this till kingdom come. Because many Vishnu temples in South India face west. Just a pattern. And the British knew that. But we had the French studying here. The colonial forces never met. In South India, there is one temple called the Vaikuntha Perumal temple, built in 770, which is 3 floors and faces west. It's the only other temple other than Angkor Wat. And it has a lot of similarities with Angkor Wat. But to say Angkor Wat was built after this is to say, well, you know, I played football in my backyard and I also played football in the Ben Hill Cricket Stadium. No, it's Angkor Wat is a temple on steroids. It's huge. It's like nothing like any other in India. So this is the temple in Kanchipuram, west facing, 3 floors. And the kings had very specific names given to that temple. The king, Surya Varman II, after he died, after he built the temple, Angkor Wat, and died, he was called he who went to the supreme Vishnu Loka, Vishnu land. And that was a name given to the Vaikuntha Perumal temple, also Vaikuntha, the supreme place. And in Sanskrit, it was called Parameshwara Vishnu Graha. And it was called Vishnu Graha in India, Vishnu Loka in Angkor. And the honorific title given to the kings in Angkor when they died was Shiva Loka. He went to Shiva's country, or Vishnu. That's a euphemism. I'm passing over this is to show you the similarities between the Kanchipuram temple and Angkor Wat. Back to the churning of the ocean of milk. Story number 2 to show you the one unique story again, seen in Hindu texts, but not seen in India. And this is not in any text in Sanskrit, it's in the Tamil text, the Tamil version of the Ramayana. At the end of the churning of the ocean of milk, there's a huge monkey. And where did this monkey come from? You never see him, and he's not in any story of the churning of the ocean of milk. None. There are 14 versions in ancient Sanskrit, and then none, it's not there. Take my word for it. So the guide will pass by, oh yeah, this is Hanuman. What's Hanuman doing there? No one knows. And then I found out that in the Tamil version of the Ramayana, composed in the 12th, same time as Angkor Wat, Vali is boasting to his wife. Remember the two monkeys fighting each other? One of them, Vali, is boasting to his wife saying, hey, I helped the Devas get the nectar of immortality. I churned the ocean of milk. And so, I'm not going to go into the verses, it's just to tell you, it's not one paragraph. There are over and over and over again, he's telling his wife, oh, you beautiful as a peacock with the voice of a cuckoo. Did you forget? It was I, with my strong arms, who churned the ocean of milk and got that nectar of immortality. I then churned the rope, like it was a pitcher of yogurt, and procured the nectar and gave it to them. You don't find it in any Sanskrit text, but in the Tamil text in the 12th century, over and over again. How did these people know about it? It's probably an oral tradition that they got hold of, and everyone had access to it. It's not that this Ramayana influenced Angkor Wat, but they all had access to the same. It's like in the Bible, when you look into the Gospels, what is the source of Matthew? It's Mark and Q. And Q is the unknown source, right? And here they have this unknown source too. And so in Angkor Wat, right here, where the setting sun makes it glow, like, by the way, it was covered with gold, the whole thing, one point. May have had a calendar function, the churning of the ocean of milk. If you count the number of devas, the holy guys, and the number of the bad guys, this is not my research, somebody else published it. It's a number of days between the spring equinox and summer solstice and the autumn equinox. So it's a kind of the archaeoastronomy stuff going on there. So it's not the same number of devas, the good guys and bad guys. It's a very deliberate number. And the calendar function is such that the measurements of Angkor Wat corresponds to various astronomical readings. And the eons of time, and I'll tell you briefly about the eons of time, all these moats and causeways. In 1975, the French, you'll never find Angkor Wat with no one there like this. 2002 only us. So the French released the measurements in metric units. 3 graduate students from the University of Michigan who had never been to Angkor, 1975, and took these measurements and started to say, what would have been the basic measurement for the building of Angkor Wat? They didn't use standard measurements in building temples. In the Vedas, the Vedic altars were built such that they were like an outer macrocosm of the patron's body. So the patron's hand and his body measurement was replicated in that Vedic altar. And the temples were built using the patron's body measurements. So what would have been Surya Varman's hand length from shoulder to the tip of his finger? And they took all these measurements, got the common factors. And when they got the common factors, they had the numbers, they were looking at it, they had no clue. The three grad students, history of science, astronomy, and art history. And finally, somebody else explained and they got it out. And I'm showing this to you. I'm not going to ask you to read it, I'll explain. They found out that the numbers of the measurements of Surya Varman's hand multiplied X number of times was the equivalent of the calendars given in the Puranas. That is the Kali Yuga, number of years in the worst possible time. All the way from the worst possible age to the golden age, it was all given here. So this article, you can download it anytime. It's from an article called Astronomy and Cosmology at Angkor Wat from Science. Yeah, the journal Science. It's not a bad journal to publish it. And so they could figure out, sitting in Ann Arbor, that the rising sun on the spring equinox and autumn equinox would rise over the central tower. So in one sabbatical, I think it was 2005, I went every day to see the sunrise. Every day to go closer and closer. And on, like 2 days before the equinox. And then that year, the equinox was on March 19th, I believe, not 19th. Bang, right in the middle of this. Yeah. I just, it's not my research, like I told you, somebody else published it, I read it. It's a teaching tool for me to talk about archaeoastronomy. So this is how the rising sun looks exactly behind the central tower. Quite impressive, especially when the sun does what it's told. Yeah. Okay, last part. I did my own little, while I was there, own little experiments with the sun. Remember, it faces west. I ran through the temple to the eastern side, where the churning of the ocean of milk is, and the rising sun focuses on the turtle, Kurmavatara, the tortoise. Vishnu is in the form of a tortoise, and nice guy. See? And another time when I was there in December, I went to the front side. Remember, according to the Indian calendar, winter solstice is January 14th. Well, it coincided with the winter solstice, with the precession of equinoxes, and so on. Eventually, there's a difference between December 21st and January 14th. But in the epic, the Mahabharata, Bhishma waits for the winter solstice, because the sacred time begins then, Uttarayana Punyakala, and dies there. And so here is Bhishma lying on the bed of arrows. Can you see here? The 5 brothers of the protagonists in the Mahabharata, Pancha Pandavas, sitting there on his head. And this is on the eastern wall, southern side of Angkor Wat. And this is them sitting there next to Bhishma. And the setting sun is close, coming near him. The trees block, but you can see the setting sun and Bhishma, and it would have come right there. So the placing of these stories was very intentional. There. Churning of the ocean of milk again. Okay, and in the center, you see Vishnu. You can see the tortoise and Vishnu. And this was a different time of the year. That's why the sun is not hot near him. What is Vishnu doing? Here are the devas, the bad guys, the good guys, and they're churning the ocean. And Vishnu is holding the snake with 2 arms. Not 4, but 2 arms. And I'm passing over this very quickly because of time. But what I've noticed is I've looked at these panels in India and in Cambodia, and like dozens and dozens of them. And you don't ever find a Vishnu holding a serpent like that. This is the only place. So where did they get this from, right? And the Bhagavata Purana says when the nectar didn't come from the ocean, Ajita, the unconquerable one, personally began to churn the ocean. So Vishnu comes down and churns the ocean. And that's the Bhagavata Purana. And he's supporting the Mount Mandara from below and holding in his triumphant arms, he held the serpent. So he holds the serpent in 2 arms. In the other text, he's holding it up with 1 arm, he's holding the mountain. Only the Bhagavata is holding the serpent with 2 hands. So you find these, you don't find Vishnu like that. 6th century. This, you don't see Vishnu holding the serpent, is holding this mountain. And only in the Bhagavata Purana is he holding the serpent by both hands. And so so he's supporting Mount Mandara from below and holding in his triumphant arms, he holds the serpent. And the Bhagavata Purana says he's holding the serpent with 2 arms and he's right smack in the middle holding it. And that particular coming together of Bhagavata Purana, the text, and Angkor Wat is unique. You don't find it anywhere else. To the best of my knowledge, I haven't come across one like that. No one shows Vishnu grabbing the mouth. So this is the only place. But notice something else here. See the coronation? They're putting water on him and anointing. Oh my time. It's with the anointing that Lakshmi, remember the picture of Lakshmi being anointed, comes up, the Abhisheka of this, the ownership of the royal Lakshmi. Why did the Khmer people or Surya Varman put so much money into this? Because the churning of the ocean of milk speaks about the coming of the goddess of good fortune, Lakshmi. She is the person whom every king should have for prosperity in the kingdom, victory over the enemies, Rajya Lakshmi. And so here, remember I showed you the pictures of Lakshmi coming and being anointed. Ganga and the holy streams attended for her ablutions, and they poured waters over the goddess, the queen of the universal world. That anointing ceremony of making a person a king or a queen, the coronation, happens with the Abhisheka. You do that for deities, you do it for kings and queens, and that's from the Vishnu Purana. And you find it in the elephants anointing Lakshmi in all of these. And apart from the sculptures, you find deities like this is Hindu Temple of Atlanta. During COVID times, they were live streaming. So they anoint the deity. And now, when a king is coronated, whether it's in Thailand or Cambodia, you find the ablutions taking place, the water coming down. So you find it in Angkor Wat, you find it with Lakshmi, you find it in every king, queen, and you find it here. And this was the present king. And that takes me to the end with one question for you. This is Angkor Wat from a balloon that I took, balloon riding. Remember this picture I showed you, the Kabal skin? This was taken after the monsoons, the rain. When I went in summer, the first time you saw this, it was dry. See? Reclining Vishnu. This was 2002 summer. 2003. And unfortunately, and people ask, how can they do it? It's the thirst to own the greed of the first world that fuels that economy. They were recovering from Pol Pot's regime. They were fighting for their lives. But it's our desire to own that marks it. Happily, a lot of stuff is being repatriated now. So it took many years for them to reconstruct the top part. So you can see in this picture, soon after it was taken out, and then after many, many years, it kind of become a mellow color, and then the reconstruction, they put it together. They just made it up, it's not the original. So a lot of my art is around the world. So the pressure now that a lot of it is coming back to Cambodia. And we hope more will reach. Okay, we'll have time to do this, but anyway, thank you for your time. And I'll leave you with this picture. Some of you may recognize people here. Dr. Dinesha, Linda Grover, Dan Mako. Every time I go to Cambodia, friends come, and so I show them around for 3 days, and then they're on their own after that. So these are different groups of people who have come at different times. So I've just showed some of those with game school people with that. And John Carmen, and his wife. Anyway, a lot of other people too. Thank you so much for your time. My apologies for going over time. I'm really sorry about that.
Would you want to take a few questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Christine. I'm a UF student. I'm doing a PhD relating to visual storytelling and
Narrative art?
Say that again?
Narrative art?
No. No, I'm
What?
doing it in English Department of Media Studies, but I'm interested
Oh,
in
yeah, of course.
visual storytelling. And last year I had the good fortune to go to Cambodia and visited those places. And the river that you mentioned with the 1,000 Shivalingam and the Vishnu, reclining Vishnu, it really struck me because it was like a great civil engineering as the water comes down and that river feeds into all the rivers.
Yes.
And it's like every living entity takes holy water from that source. So the king wanted to make sure the spiritual and
it was supposed to flow over the crops to ensure fertility after going over the lingas and Vishnu.
But I haven't seen anything like that in India. It was like it's such a great idea that everything and every creature will get holy water. Is there
Cambodia was built with hydrology principles in mind. The construction of the Western Barai, such a feat in hydrology. So yeah, and one theory is that the Angkorian kingdom fell apart when the water management fell.
But I like the idea that it's not just providing water, but through
It's
the water
all the-
providing spiritual.
All the plants as well, and for the fertility.
It's a magical place. I love it, love Canberra.
I have an article, I wrote an article on it.
I would like to read that.
Yeah, you, very interesting, beautiful what you presented today. Now, just while I was watching your presentation, something came up that you said earlier before you started, which was that we were playing the packable canon. And that was one of the pieces that just came to my mind. What are we going to play tonight? I said, well, the canon. And you know, one thing that I just wanted to, I don't know why it came up this way, but the canon really is the circle of fifths. The circle of fifths in music, which means that the chords change every five. So when you play the canon, it's very perfect. It's the perfect circle of fifths. And it just goes with what you are saying concerning the perfection of Vishnu and the fifths and the, actually it's very royal music, really.
I was kind of struck with the playing of Pakistan's canon because somehow after the first few times I went there, I was in such a fit about with that music, and I played in a loop almost in my car with the CD, and imagine and keep thinking of myself in Cambodia. This was 2002, 2003, and in my mind, that piece for strange reason was etched and connected with Angkor Wat for no reason. And so when I came in today and they were playing it, I freaked out. It's like,
Coincidence or who knows?
which has been, you know, the dance and the music has been invented and reinvented many times. It's pentatonic.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Please. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir. Now, I just maybe I missed it. So, were there original? I mean, the people of Cambodia who built that Angkor Wat, or there were architects invited from India? Or
Very good question.
who were
It's a
really?
very, very good question. Probably local people, because it's like nothing in India. But one of the theories, and I didn't get into this at all, one of the theories of how did the cultures move from the subcontinent here is not simply that people migrated, yet there may have been colonies of people. But it's also probable that the kings invited some of these artisans to come up there. But to the point that they were carving stuff not seen in India, I suspect by that time, people may have stopped coming that much. Part of the confusion is that Cambodia can refer to different places. So there were kings in Bengal who called themselves Cambodia. So when the Chola kings in South India said, this is a present from the Cambodia king, scholarship is divided whether it's from Cambodia or if it's in Bengal. And that he gave this stone for this temple here, and he gave one of them, Cambodia kings gave a huge chariot. So we don't know. So there is a theory and there is an idea that they invited people from India to come there, especially people who knew, they were, the kings were all about power, not much about spiritual stuff. So if this king, this priest would come with tantric mantras and say, I'm going to make you the biggest king ever, ever, ever. And the inscriptions are filled with names of such priests. So, X and Y, and they did it. And since they were kind of supervising the inscription more than the king could praise themselves. So it's a great question. We don't know the answer.
I wanted to.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I really wanted to thank you. I thought I knew a lot about Angkor Wat, but I didn't. So I've learned a lot tonight. And I want to also let folks know what we have now. No proper function. What's
There's
that?
one more question in the back.
There's one more question in the back.
You had a question, yes.
Maybe we can do that afterwards, because, personally, there's, no function is proper, especially in the Hindu tradition, without a snack, which is known as prasad. So what we have next, Vasu, is there are drinks here, and in the next room over, there's a tray. It's not a dinner, but a wonderful snacks by our world-class chef who's visiting us. And also all the books from our institute are on display there. So they're for sale, including a new version of the Mahabharata, the great Bharata by Hridayananda Goswami.
Mr. Daksha Kanya?
Yes, Dr. Kanya. Dr. Kanya, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
inviting. Thank you all for coming. None of us have time, and the fact that you made this much time and were so patient, even though I went over.
Thank you, wonderful.
The one announcement is that prasadam is vegan and gluten-free. I just say this because of different diets. Some things have sugar, so that's the only thing maybe for some of you.
And